to a commodity at all. That's what we were discussing. And especially should it be linked to a means of paying debt to a commodity. And as the discussion was evolving, it became, what kind of a nation or a government should we have? If government is going to be a financial oligarchy, then of course we have a problem, and the financial oligarchy wants to make an interregional government and impose itself internationally, essentially into a neo-feudal type of arrangement. Or should we have economic democracy? I think governments are an arena. Government is not bad or good as such. A financial oligarchy is bad, and economic democracy is good, but economic democracy is losing out to the financial oligarchy. I've written on this earlier this year in the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, but I think that we should realize that government itself is an arena, and that has made the currency issue into an arena and the debt issue into an arena. All of these things are in play at once, and we need to look at the economy and the government as an overall system, not take a part-by-part approach to this.
Thank you. It's Margaret and then Christian.
Yes. I would like to address the question by Mr. Molloy, who I understand wanted to know whether we advocate a sort of encompassing monetization of all aspects of social life by complementary currencies. And I want to agree with you that is a problem. And I've experienced that firsthand in the community. I live for 27 years now, where we have tried 4 times to implement complementary currency to serve the community and the village over there. And it was impossible because people said, I don't want to put a value on helping my neighbor to do this, that, and the other. And by always putting figures to something, it creates a social coldness. You know, it is, and I think the best person who has written about this is Charles Eisenstein, who is one of the real thinkers in the Occupy movement in the United States, who says one of the big problems we have right now is that there are hardly any more areas of life which are not monetized, and that we are coming to a point where this is getting really difficult. I mean, looking after elderly people, looking after sick people, looking after children, it all is being farmed out, and people are getting paid to do the job. All the things that have been part of the family earlier on, mostly women, and so on. And although we may not want to revert to earlier times, I think it needs to be, that needs to be one of our, how can you say that, one of our criteria too, is this area which we're going to develop, for which we're going to develop a currency, whether it's energy or whether it's education or whatever, is the monetization of that area going to help, or is it going to hinder, for instance, neighbors helping each other, etc. So I think there's a very good question, and it really needs to be part of our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Margaret, although I think most people working on currency alternatives or complementary currencies are not people who think everything should be monetized, right? So, I mean, that's important to say. I think what we are working on is possibilities to bring exchange resources into areas where the mainstream monetary system is simply not going. That, I think, can go either way, but in many ways it is actually coming as a help towards what you're saying. And there are many examples where complementary currencies are, or whatever you want to call them, incentive mechanisms or exchange mechanisms, are actually reinforcing community in areas where the standard money has actually destroyed a community. But of course, it doesn't mean we should measure everything, and I think nobody's wanting to do that. It's just that there are many cases, especially in our complex societies, whether we like it or not, where one-to-one exchanges, informal exchanges are not always able to happen. And so we do need mutual credit, mutualization. And I think these mechanisms of money or currency are simply to be viewed as ways which should be designed and well designed and so on to actually help the mutualization so that we as citizens can grow back into realizing how much we depend on one another. I think so. There's not an opposition between these things. Although I agree with Margaret, we have to be careful on when it helps and when it doesn't help. Now, do we need a reference point in the monetary system? I think that's just. I understand the question. I just don't think it's relevant because there is always a reference system. I mean, even in the so-called floating exchange rate systems, the idea is that money is going to be emitted. I don't agree with this idea. Okay? I don't agree with all reference points, but there is always one. Yes, that's two different things, right? So there is always a reference point in the sense that we have delegated to private actors the power to decide who gets how much money for which project to exchange what for what. Okay? So the reference point, I mean, Joseph Huber is right in saying currency is always backed. At best, it is backed by the total GDP that we are thinking will be engendered by the money we create. We may be wrong, we may be right, but it's always backed by some, I would call it dedicated currencies or predicated currencies. We can have either. Okay? Now, that doesn't mean all these reference points are right. My problem with the energy money concept is that, as I said before, just the fact of backing money on energy goods or energy flows or whatever doesn't say much about what the intention of the monetary system is. If we want to create scarcity of the money, of the currency, well, yes, we can back it by many things, okay? But if by creating scarcity, we also want to sort of engender behavioral changes or to be, reduce energy consumption overall for sustainability reasons, that's another issue. And again, probably we'll hear about it tomorrow in much more detail. It's really too bad this is coming so late, but okay. Anyway, and now the last thing, nation state versus commons. I'm sorry, but of course we have many other levels than nation states. But I don't think, and I agree with Michael, I think we're nowhere near the end. I fully disagree with your statement that you don't understand why nation states are still being mentioned. Of course they're being mentioned, because they're the basic entity. If anything is going to be negotiated at world level or at supranational level, it's always by nation states, whether we like it or not. I'm not an advocate of nation states necessarily, but that's how it happens. Of course, and in that sense, nation states are the sort of basic, it's not a nationalistic statement that I'm making, it's just a pragmatic statement. They're the entities which are going to negotiate, which are negotiating trade agreements, which, if we don't have the support of most supranational or international organizations to change the money system, forget it. So, and that's a pragmatic statement. It doesn't mean we're all nation states, but there's certainly one of the main actors still.
Thank you very much. We have already done 4 minutes more than planned. But as we have 19 sightseeing here, and the discussion is really interesting, I would propose that we take another 15 minutes for the discussion here. Maybe we should vote. You can express your feelings about this, and then you go for it. Yeah, we'll be ready for that. Are there some questions still? We can take, let us 3 more, and then we'll make the final round.
would the panel... My name is Shannon Turnbull from the Forty Foundation. Would the panel agree that the word complementary currency does not communicate the need to replace the existing inequitable, inefficient, monopolized, counterproductive, ecological destroying system that we presently have, and that you need to come up with some other words like a replacement financial system? That the word complementary currency, we don't want to complement the existing system, we want to replace it.
We did not get an answer to my neighbour's question. Some papers talk about currency unions. I'll leave that to Dr. Hurdle to sort out. But my own reason for standing up is a little more complex. Do you agree with me, my question, do you agree with me that a reference point to all of these questions, but not necessarily like gentlemen mentioned gold standard, but maybe the gold standard of economic democracy could be considering every question from the point of view of the sovereignty of the people, which is the left, as opposed to the veto of the oligarchy, which is on the right. I mean, that's, to me, a gold standard of economic democracy. We ought to use it, maybe. Do you agree with that? And my other question is, because lots of questions have been put up, which that could help to answer. And as to the question about the nation state, there was quite a lot of to and fro about that, and maybe you would agree with me that the nation state is by definition a protection racket, but that's quite okay. That we need protection. The people pay the state to protect them, but they don't get protected. But the state itself pays monopoly capital, let's call it, the bank, and is itself quite well protected. So somewhere there's a problem. We pay for a service we're not getting. You know, should we go to the commercial tribunal or what? But that's my question. What do we do about the protection we're not getting from the state? Because the state is not a problem. The question is, it should be serving us. Yeah, sorry, it's a question. Do you agree the state should protect us?
Thank you. The last question comes somewhere. Yeah, please.
This is hard to discuss. I don't think we should. This is hard to figure out how to discuss.
Doesn't work.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Is that good? Okay. All right. Is that good? Can you hear? Can you hear that? Oh, that's it. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. I think when I'm following up on what you said, because the group that is most affected by not considering the wider volunteer and love economy as, or human existence economy, the activities of that are not paid in wage. The problem with that is the part of the world that you're eliminating from our traditional economic system is women and children for the most part, because they're the ones that make that very difficult decision of whether to work or whether to take care of their children. And when they do have children, they will take care of those children whether or not they're paid or not. And I don't know how, it would be very, I would like to form this in a question, but I think we should consider it, we'd have to revisit this in a different way than saying that people are insulted by being paid for something they love to do. Because, I mean, priests love to teach religion, but they accept payment for that. You know, I mean, lots of people love what they want to, what they do, but they'll accept payment for that. We have to revisit this because this is affecting more than, I mean, it's half the population. And young women even today are making these decisions, even though they say that, okay, women have everything available to them, but once they have a child, they don't have everything available to them.
Thank you very much. So we have to close the session, except the final round that we should start here with Christian, Bobia, Margaret, Ivo, and Mike. Please.
Okay, well, obviously we can't each address all of the questions, so, but about Shan's question, I think I would stick to complementary though, because of course we should discuss it with Michael as well. What do you guys mean exactly by replacing, sort of a sudden, you know, changeover? You are bound, I think, to have, I mean, any proposal of an alternative is going to be complementary right now. And all the things that people are doing at local and bioregional level and so on are complementary. The idea, of course, in Lyotard and others, in my own work, and Margaret, I think, as well, is to say, let's organize the monetary system such there is an ecosystem, so that there is actually, if I may say this that way, fair competition between monetary forms, okay? That may mean sort of deconstructing parts of the power relationship. I don't see that it means necessarily within 1 month eliminating the complete power relationships that exist. That's all we mean by complementary. It doesn't mean we don't want the things to change. It means it's a different strategy, I think, from the one-for-one system change that has never really worked in the past. You know, so, but that's just the state of my thinking right now.
I'll just say a case. This one in front. It is. I will just tell you a case of my country, very small country, and the one to listen. My country decided to introduce foreign currency. Although we are very proud of our nationality as a people. So we introduced Deutschmark when it was one of the major currencies in Europe. When Euro came in power, my government introduced Euro. We are not eligible to print euros. We have to buy them on the market. It is a very interesting case to examine. What a small country, which uses a foreign currency, has gained and what has lost. I think we haven't lost identity, but we gained a lot. And since we want to compete with today's world, and we can't compete with the local currency. And so that's probably a very good case to be a study case, to see what you can do, not just pursuing a power by the money. Thank you.
Well, I think the euro has certain advantages, and it may be good for Montenegro, but it may not be good for Iceland. And it may not be good for Ireland for some reason or other. I really feel that the main point I always want to get across is that this money system we have today is not made by God. It is made by human beings, and it can be changed by human beings. And therefore, the definition of the problem we are facing and looking at how money can help solve these problems is, for me, is the sort of main and first task, whether it is in the direction of energy, whether it's in the direction of culture, in what direction whatsoever. It is really important that we are beginning to get rid out of this prison we have built for ourselves, that this money system we have is the best. and there is no other way. And if we can get that across, and if we can know a few examples which serve particular purposes better than the present money system. And I'm not against the euro. I think the euro has a lot of value, and it is sometimes very difficult to explain to people the advantages of regional currencies, while they're so happy to go across the boundary to France and not have to change money, and suddenly we come along with regional currencies. But then you can see that the regions, there are some regions that profit from the euro and others that don't. And those that don't profit from the euro do very well in implementing their own regional currency. So this is really what I feel is the most important message that must come across. And I hope we can see tomorrow a few more good examples also dealing with energy.
It's always good to follow after a brilliant lady with whom I fully agree. But let me start first by commenting on what Christian said in the first round of discussions, when there was a discussion between him and Raul about the term which is called nation state, or even more precisely, national sovereign state, and what Christian said. Actually, the important numbers we have are the following. One is we have roughly 5,000 cultures and 5,000 different languages in the world, and we absolutely want to preserve them. They are as important for us as biological diversity. So that is what we want. The other thing that we want is we want to preserve one unique world, because all our possible efforts to colonize, go around and so on, are much, much more difficult than what Columbus or Vasco da Gama or any one of them did. So we are, in a way, reasonably stuck to this. Though I very highly support Stephen Hawking that we should invest the money, we should colonize the universe and so on, but then it is going quite on a slow rate. Speaking about sovereign states, and I think that the term nation is confusing, and let me tell you, for instance, when during the wars and all the difficulties we had in former Yugoslavia, there were discussions, for instance, where people in Bosnia, I remember in 1995, absolutely could not agree with our American colleagues who came there and said, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a nation. They said, no, 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 we are not a nation. They said, we are composed of at least 3 and possibly 4 or 5 nations. For nobody in Bosnia, Bosnia and Herzegovina is not a nation. Because nations are there totally equal to the concept of the cultures and the ethnic groups. And Bosnia, for them, Bosnia and Herzegovina, is a sovereign state, and that is totally different. Of course, when you talk to the Americans, states are California, Georgia, and so on, so we do have their economy. Now, the other thing, of course, when we speak about the so-called sovereign state, and I think it's good to use this term, let us not forget that now we have something of the order of a little bit more than 200. It will be, and there I agree with you, Christian, it's absolutely unbelievable to have, let's say, 400. Definitely it's impossible to have 5,000, because such a system does not work. As a matter of fact, even this system of 200 doesn't work, and we have a Security Council with all of its shortcomings, which goes back to the time of the Second World War, where the veto power is very, very heavily condensed. So this is, in that sense, that is the reality. But let us not forget that the number of sovereign states has drastically changed due to the decolonization, and actually after the fall of the Berlin War, we had another 20 states that came. Yugoslavia split in 7, Soviet Union split in whatever, 15, Czechoslovakia split in 2, and so on. So this is the same. So this is one of the things we have to really worry and very carefully analyze how we want to do. And then on top of that, I think we should not forget that we have whatever the number is of the order of hundreds, transnational companies that have whatever measure of their economic strength is, but is comparable or bigger than many of these states. So that is one of the things. And the question that finally, through the help of a gentleman who is close by, you will finally manage here to understand that your question was, what do we think about the integrated currency like euros and like possibly currencies that could exist in any other countries of the world. And of course the example that Momir said of his own country, and Bosnia also has the so-called convertible Deutschmark, you know, so these are interesting things. And as I said yesterday, there were proposals to have just one world currency. Mandel was in favor of that, Cooper was in favor of that. But the question is, and this is why I started my words by going back to Margaret, is whatever we do with currency, it has to satisfy this basic rule. It has to be for human welfare. If it is not, as it is not now, is best. How we do it to be in agreement with human welfare, we have to think about. Thank you.
My final comment to the questions that were raised by Sean and others is that the financial system obviously is broken. The Canadian Postal Workers Union has a motto, if a job's not worth doing, it's not worth doing well. And we're not here to try to fix the current financial system, which is really a debt system. Regarding the role of the euro and the nation state, you have the European Union Troika is certainly not a good model. It's sort of how not to do the system. It's run by the IMF and the European Central Bank on behalf of the bankers. It's been hijacked, and it's turned the idea of European unity away from the original socialist idea of ending war into a new kind of war, into a financial war against Greece, against Ireland, against Iceland, and certainly that is the antithesis, I think, of the kind of monetary system that we all want. Unfortunately, the U.S. monetary system, the global monetary system that the United States is pushing through the International Monetary Fund is based on special drawing rights, SDRs, which in effect are U.S. military spending. This is why China, Russia, and the BRICS are thoroughly opposing it, and even why China has realized that gold has one virtue. If there was gold to settle international deficits, the United States could not encircle Asia. The discussions I've had in Beijing with Chinese officials are that they have to save their international reserves in the form of loans to the U.S. Treasury to finance the U.S. domestic budget deficit and the payments deficit that are military in character. So the monetary system is based on paying the United States to encircle Asia with atomic weapons to say, if you don't agree to our monetary system, we will bomb you and we will start localist movements to break you up. That's how China and Russia view the world. That's certainly how Mr. Putin views the world. And that is antithetical to the kind of ideas that we're supporting, but it can hijack the rhetoric that we're using for this. And the question is, it's necessary to realize that the main source of money today is financing American military spending and the American takeover of the rest of the world. And if we don't put our discussion in that context, we'll be sidetracked.
Thank you very much. For this day, I thank you very much to the audience, especially the discussants, and above all, the speakers here. Thank you very much. I think I can relate quite a lot of material for the conference declaration, which was the final aim of this session. I can announce that we have still some information about the science week.
Thank you, Eric. So, Dear colleagues, those of you who have registered for the sightseeing tour tonight, there is a bus waiting already, going to the Radisson Hotel, and from there will be another bus at 7:15, which will take everybody to the tour. So even if you do not stay in Radisson, but you registered for the tour, please join us for that bus going to the Radisson Hotel. Those who did not register but would like to be part of it, you still have this opportunity at our reception desk. So, thank you very much, and see you soon at the tour.
For those who are staying at the Meridian, there is a bus going to the Meridian. And if you want to go on sightseeing, you can also do that. Sorry.